So over the past 8 or 9 years, my brother and I have owned roughly 100 cars, give or take. And people are always shocked when they hear we've only lost money on one of them, our E93 BMW M3 that after 3 years we lost like 1,500 bucks on. Big whoop. But that's all gonna change with this Maserati Gran Turismo behind me. I'm sorry to break up all the cool Porsche content, but it's time we talk about the dumpster fire that is my flooded Maserati Gran Turismo. I'm really sounding like James the Stradman here with his twin-turbo Lamborghini Gallardo disaster, but I feel the same way about this thing. It has been nothing but headache after headache after headache, and after its most recent issue of the transmission blowing up, I have had it. Let's get into it. Everything that has happened with this car, everything that's broken, and all the money that it's cost us, and how much money we're gonna lose on it, and why you should think twice before you go out and buy a salvage flood car. So I'm not gonna lie, it was love at first sight. When I first saw this car come up to the salvage auction in New Jersey, I'm like, I gotta have it. It's a 2018 facelifted Maserati Gran Turismo in this gorgeous color combo. I mean, come on, look at this interior. This car is absolutely stunning. This is probably the coolest spec Maserati Gran Turismo I've seen. The red interior, the carbon fiber bits, the upgraded MC wheels over the kind of gunmetal gray paint. So despite this car just having gone through Hurricane Ida, being a non-runner, unknown mileage, mechanically damaged car at the salvage auction, for some reason I still thought it would be a good idea to bid. It's like a siren. I was just lured into its beauty and I ignored all the red flags and I bought this thing for $32,000. That was the final bid and I thought I got a home run. A car that was originally $150,000 that was lightly used, just 2.5 years old for 32 grand. Are you kidding me? And that sentiment continued when this car finally made off the transport truck and we got it back home and we started going through it. So if you guys are consistent viewers on the channel, you would remember the first vlogs of picking this car up, getting it delivered, and going through it for the first time. And step number one was to pull this little cord here to get to the battery because the auction didn't know how to do that. And I was so excited when we got to the battery and we could finally power the car up for the first time. However, I made a big mistake. So remember how I said this car was totaled because of flood damage? Well, yeah, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that floodwater and supercars is not a good mix. And speaking of mixing, it especially doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that you shouldn't start a car that has water in the oil or water in the transmission.
Flashback.
Yeah, that doesn't really look like oil unless there's like a new orange blend of oil.
Dang it.
Now, if the water line was higher on this car, I wouldn't even try to start it, but because it was so low, we're gonna go ahead and give it a jump start and give it a try.
But the fact that there's a bit of water somehow in the pan.
All right, that's enough of it running. We don't want to cause any more damage in case there is water in the oil.
End of flashback.
So I get it. This is my fault, but I was just too excited in the moment. I thought it would be a good idea for the video to get this car fired up right after it came off the trailer. And guess what? It did start up. Within 10 minutes, we got to the battery, we got it started and running and moving under its own power. A quick wash, oil change, and battery replacement away from having a perfectly good Maserati for like 75% off. All that excitement was quickly extinguished when disaster struck. And somehow you guys saw that disaster striking before I did. Not gonna lie, I was riding a bit of a high horse in that video. I'm like, heck yeah, another salvage win. I'm just on a roll, 1, 2, 3, ABC. And then all the comments were like,
dude, you're so stupid. Are you kidding me? Why would you buy a flooded Maserati? What are you doing starting it up with water in the oil? That engine's gonna blow up. You're gonna ruin this car.
And honestly, I was just kind of laughing at those comments saying like, look at all these haters. This car is gonna be an easy win. And what do you know? It was the beginning of the end. Just 2 days later, after driving the car only 30 miles, while cruising down the highway at 65 miles an hour like normal, boom, goes the engine. Smoke starts pouring out the rear view mirror. We can see it behind us. And then all of a sudden that smoke turns into fire. Literally, we are a fireball traveling down the highway. We quickly pull over. Luckily, the fire somehow put itself out, but oil is just pouring down onto the ground from the engine. And that's when we knew this was our first ever engine failure while driving or while parked. We've never ever had an engine blow up. That's right, the beautiful Ferrari designed 4.7 liter V8 engine, decided to exit the chat. What's crazy is you can still see the remnants from the fireball behind us, and that is in the form of a burnt diffuser. You can see it was starting to melt. Luckily it's not too noticeable, so we'll just leave it, but that's the proof that this car was on fire. That really sucked, but luckily it could have been a lot worse. Obviously the car could have like burnt down to the ground. It didn't do that. We could have been harmed. We were fine. And what's also good is that this engine is very common. I mean, Maserati made gazillions of these motors. They put it in the Quattroporte, they put it on the Gran Turismo. We got lucky finding one on eBay Motors for just $4,500. So we had it shipped out here. It had similar mileage. A Corsa installed it for, I think, also about $4,500. So all in total, that's another $9,000 we dumped into this car. But hey, it was back up and running perfect as if nothing ever happened. So I was okay with it. I'm like, you know what? Okay, 32 grand plus the auction fees, 34, 35, plus a little bit of body work we had to do, 36, 37. Plus we had to install new tires because they had crappy winter tires on the car. So 38. Okay, plus the 9 grand for the engine, 47,000 bucks. I'm like, okay, not bad, but not great. And we're not even done. Maserati parts, bodywork, and shipping have gotten really, really expensive lately. But you know what else has gotten expensive lately? Gas, eating out, and groceries. And that's where today's video sponsor, Upside, comes in. As you can imagine, with dozens of cars in our collection, Christian and I are at gas stations pretty much every day, it feels like. And I think we can all agree that nobody likes a hefty bill after a full tank. But what if I told you there's a way to earn real cash back every time you fill up or get food? And yes, it's real cash back, not confusing rewards, points, or credits. It's actually money you can transfer into your bank account. There's over 100,000 gas stations, grocery stores, and restaurants on the Upside app. As you can see here, there are hundreds of offers in my home state of Arizona. In fact, just yesterday, I used Upside to earn 18% cash back when I picked up some pizzas at Domino's for the movie night. It's super easy. All you have to do is claim the offer. Then once you pay for the gas or the groceries or the pizza, in my case, you click paid and that's it. Upside will handle the rest. Soon after that, the cash back will reflect in your account and you're on the road to free savings. Top Upside earners are making as much as $300 a month. To find out how much you can earn, click the link in the description down below, download Upside, and be sure to use my promo code JRGarage. That'll get you an extra 25 cents off per gallon on your first fill up. Guys, we've been using this app for 7 years now. I promise you'll love it. Now, let's get back to the video. Maybe if we sell it right away, we could probably squeak out a little profit or break even. Certainly not ideal, but considering we didn't factor in an engine blowing up, not the end of the world, right? No, 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 not so fast, young grasshopper. Guess what? After we replaced the engine, we had this car back for about a month worth of driving before Disaster 2.0 struck. Now, I know you're saying, what could possibly be worse than your engine blowing up? Well, that would be the transmission blowing up. Yes, you heard that right. The transmission grenaded itself. We discovered this because all of a sudden one day we decided to go for a drive in the car, and what do you know? And we go to shift into gear and it goes into drive, but nothing happens. It won't engage. The car won't move. So we're like, what the heck? You know, we tried a few more times, like drive, reverse, nothing. You didn't hear any grinding noise or anything weird. It's just, it was stuck. So we're like, that's weird. Some electrical issue with the transmission. Well, it's probably just a $5 sensor hanging off the transmission that got wet. You know, that would make sense. Clearly, all of our bad luck has already run out for this car, right? Can't possibly be anything too severe. Oh boy, let's begin chapter 2 of the Maserati dumpster fire. Yeah, if by now you're saying, I am never gonna buy a flood car in my entire life, then hey, you might be onto something. But just do as we say, not as we do. If you do buy a flood car, don't be stupid with it. Go through all the precautionary measures to make sure you don't damage it further. Hey, keep in mind, we bought that 997 Turbo 911 from the same auction, the same week, the same hurricane flood, and it has been fantastic. And we're gonna make a ton of money on that car. So luckily that balances out for this car a little bit. Anyway, chapter 2. So we take the car back to Corsa and they start going through it and they start replacing all the easy things that it could be. Little sensors, maybe recalibrating the transmission, plugging it into their fancy computers and trying to pull codes. And after putting them all in, the problem was still there. So they were stumped and they were moving locations. They had a lot going on and they said, hey, you know, we kind of give up, or we just can't really focus on this right now. Dang it. So I take the car and I'm like, you know what? Let's give it to the Maserati dealership. They'll certainly know what the issue is, right? My brother and I typically have a rule of do not take a car to the dealership for service because the bill will probably be a lot higher. But in this case, we were just like out of options. And sometimes you can have luck if it's a really weird, obscure issue. The dealer has really fancy tools and they know the cars really well because that's all they work on. And sometimes you can get in and out for a $200 diagnosis and have the problem solved. Best case scenario. So they quickly start diagnosing it and they said, hey, the next step is going to be draining the transmission fluid and refilling it with new fluid. And I'm like, that's not needed. It was changed like 400 miles ago when Corey did the annual service after the flood. But they said, you know, it might have something to do with it. Let us at least drain it. By the way, just moving this car is such a pain in the butt, winching it onto trailers. And so I'm like, I really don't want to move it. So sure, go ahead, do whatever you want to do. Just drain it. Let's see what happens. What do you know? There's the smoking gun. Disgusting, burnt, orange looking fluid. And worse yet, it is filled with metal shavings. Meaning the transmission was actively grenading itself until it got to a point where the gears were so chewed up that it wouldn't even go into gear. So when they called, hey, yeah, we've got good news and we got bad news. And I'm like, oh, what's the good news? And they're like, well, like we figured out the issue. And I'm like, oh, great, what is it? And they're like, well, that's the bad news. And I'm like, oh, okay, what? And they're like, oh, it's gonna need a new transmission. I'm like, what? And they're like, well, yeah, it's gonna be at least $35,000.
I declare bankruptcy!
And they're like, well, maybe you still have warranty on the car. It's pretty new. And I'm like, no, the warranty was canceled because it's a salvage car. It's flooded. And they're like, oh, sure enough. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we canceled the warranty on this car. Sorry about that. So would you like to pay $35,000? And I'm like,
no!
Honestly, I was thinking about filming all of this like as it was happening, but I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna waste the viewers' time in case this car ends up like being sold for parts. You know, I don't wanna waste people's time if there is no like closure on it. So finally, there is some closure, which is why I'm posting the video today, but keep following along, don't skip ahead. I hope you're enjoying this so far. So once again, a couple weeks later, here we are loading this hunk of junk, flooded Maserati back up onto our trailer, towing it to the next shop. So we start calling shop after shop after shop, and nobody really wants to mess with this thing. They're like, oh gosh, flood car, no way. So Christian and I started to think of any last places we could take this thing. And then we had the idea, well, maybe we can take it to a transmission specialist and possibly they can rebuild the transmission. We took it to like Amco Transmissions. They're the only ones who are willing to at least look at it. And we said just, hey, please work up a quote for how much this transmission would cost to rebuild. They came back with some news and a quote to get this Maserati back up and running. You know it's gonna be bad when they say, can you come down to our store to go over some things in person? So he handed us the quote, like 5 pages deep of paper. He goes, well, yeah, your transmission, not fixable. It's gonna need a new one. $22,951. That's just the beginning. He also found that our mechatronics unit, the brains of the transmission, I guess got wet and is also completely toast. How much could that possibly be? Well, a couple grand mechatronics units are for cars usually. No, for the Maserati, it is $7,679, according to their quote. Oh, and guess what? If it couldn't get any worse, that mechatronics unit is VIN specific and it needs to be ordered straight from Maserati with our exact VIN. Wonderful. So even if we found a used transmission, we would have to still pay $7,600 plus tax and install for this new VIN-specific mechatronics unit. And it's not like he was just pulling this out of thin air. Christian and I did some research on the forums, and sure enough, they said you cannot wipe a VIN and like reassign a new VIN to a different model and year mechatronics unit and just swap it into your car. So at this point, we have very mixed emotions. Part of me is holding back tears and so upset and sad with this car, and part of me is absolutely pissed off and furious and about to send this car to the salvage scrap yard and have it parted out into a million pieces as punishment for doing us this dirty over the past year and a half.
My fault. It's not your fault. Is this my fault?
But we continued to hear him out. He said the filter is $286.52. It needs 10 quarts of special transmission fluid, $32 each, so $329. It needs a gasket, which is $86. And we haven't even talked labor yet, $3,040 for all that work, which means out the door with tax, $32,172.42. You're telling me you want more than the total price I paid for the car in the first place to replace this transmission? I mean, at the end of the day, that is a few grand cheaper than the Maserati dealership, so I guess we are getting somewhere. So once again, I swiftly told him, no, that's not gonna happen. But at this point, we were out of options. No other shop wants to touch the car. Even if we find a used transmission, the mechatronics unit won't work. So no matter what, we won't have a working car. We're gonna have to bite the bullet and find a used transmission, then putting in the new coated mechatronics unit, then obviously doing all the labor, having the shop put it in, pay minimum 15,000 bucks. So we just figured, you know what, we have to do it. We're in it too deep now. You can't turn around. It's the sunk cost fallacy. We have to just keep spending to try to get our money back out of it because it's worthless in pieces, non-running like this. So to have any hope of recouping some money, we had to invest more. So we start looking for a used transmission on eBay, and there's quite a few out there, but we're specifically looking for one ideally from 2018. They're all the same, by the way. It's a very common 6-speed ZF transmission that they've been using for years. And what do you know, to our surprise, we come across a 2018 Maserati Gran Turismo 6-speed automatic out of a car with just 9,000 miles. Needle in a haystack, but somehow we found that needle. Huge shout out to Exotic Auto Recycling for having this transmission. So we reached out on eBay, said, hey, we need this thing. Can you do any better on the price? And they came back and said, yeah, we'll do it for $1,750. So we said, all right, you got yourself a deal, we'll take it. And what do you know? A few days later, it shows up at the Amco transmission shop and they said, okay, what do you want us to do with this? They made it very clear that this was a used part. They did not buy it new from the dealership, so they cannot warranty any of the work. If it doesn't work, if it causes more problems, if nothing happens, they can't do anything. And I understood that. But at the end of the day, we know we're still gonna have to buy that $7,500 mechatronics unit, but that can be done after the transmission's up and in there, we figured. So we told the shop to just install it, and then we'll come pick up the car with a trailer. We'll get it back to our shop, we'll order the mechatronics, and then I'll have my friend coding the new mechatronics. That is the game plan, and then out the door, that'd be roughly $15,000 instead of $35,000. So just 2 days later, I get a call from the transmission shop saying the work is done, the new transmission is in, and the car is ready for pickup. And I'm like, all right, I'll be there with my trailer in 15 minutes. And they're like, well, what do you mean trailer? And I'm like, to tow it out of there to install the new mechatronics and make it run again. And then they're like, you're not gonna believe this. It appears to work. It went into gear. We drove it out of the shop. And I'm just thinking, are these guys talking about the right car? No, they definitely mixed my car up with somebody else's. Like, it literally should not be moving. Like, it won't work without the coded mechatronics. And the guy says, no, I assure you, this is the gray Maserati. It's ready for pickup. It moves. No warranty. Do what you want. Like, we're done. We're done. We got our piece. Come pay us and you can do whatever you want with the car. So I go over there and I pay the bill, and the bill is simply the labor and the, you know, filter and stuff cost. We paid just $3,852. Plus, of course, the $1,750 for the used transmission from Exotic Auto Recycling. So $5,602 out the door for the new transmission installation, which shouldn't have resulted in a working car. But I update this video to tell you guys that yes, the car works. Somehow, some way, the old mechatronics unit in this transmission that I bought worked. It swapped right in. Maybe if you get the same model year, you don't need to do the mechatronics thing. I have no idea. All I know is that right now we have a working Maserati that has been working for the past couple months with 0 issues. So I can safely say I think we are in the clear. Listen to this. Oh yeah. Check engine. No, come on, did I jinx myself? I'm just kidding. Give it 5 seconds. It'll go out in 3, 2, 1. Okay, there we go. See, it's a Maserati thing. They're weird like that. For the first 30 seconds, the check engine light's always on. Ha, gotcha. What do you guys think? Sell it now that it's perfect and just cut our losses, take a huge hit, but get the money out of it and be done with it, or keep it and enjoy it now that it's fully sorted? That's what's so frustrating is after 2 years, I've driven this car like 3 times. Like, that's the biggest disappointment. Yeah, we're gonna lose a lot of money on it, but like, you buy a car to enjoy it. And I've never really been able to enjoy this car. Normal mode, valves closed. Let's open those valves. Oh, these cars sound so good, especially with the Urutu non-resonated X pipe down there. Oh, it's just the perfect level of loud. Let's close this up and go driving. Come on, let's celebrate, guys. It is good to be back. By the way, if you're buying a Gran Turismo, the 2018 facelift is pretty sweet because you finally get decent avionics. The old one was just ancient equipment. Whereas this is pretty solid. It's probably out of a Dodge Dart, but I don't want to hear it. And it's got a pretty sweet Harman Kardon sound system. What a fitting song. What do you guys think? Should the Maserati stay or should it go? Please, please, please comment down below. I need to know. Yeah, I'm definitely not too excited at the prospect of taking like a $15,000 loss. Despite us getting like a used engine, a used transmission, being very frugal and crafty with repairing this car, imagine you just paid the dealership to fix this thing. 40,000 bucks for the engine, $35,000 for the transmission, 75,000 bucks plus the 35,000. You'd be in this car like 110,000 bucks. That'd be like a $70,000 loss. But in our case, it's still gonna be like a $15,000 loss, which, oh, that hurts to say. Like I said in the intro, we've only really lost money on one car sale, and that's a BMW M3, 1,500 bucks. But this is 15,000. This one's gonna hurt. But yeah, if anyone's interested in this car, I know I just made it sound like a horrible car, but like I said, the past couple months have been great, and I'm pretty sure this car is dialed in now. So if you want a sweet facelifted Gran Turismo with this cool spec, we'd sell it for $41,000. So if you're seriously interested, jaredgarage22@gmail.com. But I'm also tempted just to keep it because it's like, 40 grand at this point. We're already losing a ton of money. Why not just enjoy it? What a good GT car. So much car for the money. Any Gran Turismo, I think is, golly, that sounds good. Of course, we've had a lot of these Gran Turismos now. I would highly recommend 2013 plus is I think when they got it dialed in pretty good. That's when they got the biggest horsepower rating. The interior was updated, the seats are nicer, a little more reliable than the early cars. I would probably stay away from like the 2008s that have like the 4.2 liter engine. 4.7 is where it's at. All right, let's do just a tiny little first gear pull. Here we go, just mash the throttle. Oh. And then now you just hit that sport button and it goes into quiet mode. And then you can sneak back around your neighbors. But yeah, here you go. I mean, transmission works just fine. So if you're in a similar issue, now you know, just maybe get the same model year transmission and you might be good to go. If somebody can explain why we didn't need new mechatronics, please go ahead in the comment section. There's some good luck to end the story. We end this video on good news, except losing 15 grand on the sale of a car is not good news, but. So there you guys go, the dumpster fire story of our flooded Maserati Gran Turismo. I hope you enjoyed. If you stayed till the end, you're a real one. We'll be back to the Porsche content probably next video. But what a crazy past couple of years it's been with this car, full of ups and downs, mainly downs, a whole lot of downs, very few ups. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you are new. Comment down below what you think of flood cars and salvage auctions and all that good stuff. And we'll see you guys in the next one. See ya!